Some merch up front in a suitcase, mind you. Let's give it up for your feature poet, Baraka Noel.
Hey guys. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh man, I'm so many ways right now.
Tell us about you.
Oh my God. I'll tell you about yesterday. We just started this crowdsourcing campaign because that's what people do now, I guess. I've been doing stand-up comedy, and this comic got really mad at me for my campaign. I don't really know why. I'm assuming it's because he really cared about my well-being. But I don't know if you know how they tend to work. Usually people donate stuff and then you give them stuff, which when I was growing up was called a store. But now it's called crowdfunding. But so he donated money and asked me to write something for someone who meant a lot to him. So this is what I wrote yesterday. One mother's worry can pause the world. That part I didn't write yesterday. It's from a song I was listening to that I wrote earlier. For the night. Something in the rain reminded me I was alive as I sat sobbing in a crowded Starbucks. Soul and sadness over elevator radio like yesterday, sitting in our passenger seat, feeling my spirit climb beyond the confines of my body. The physics of laughter had escaped me. And I was tired. I've heard and seen of dead and dying art forms in my arms, living to revive them. For the legends that I loved, I'm told I ought to plan better and budget more. You were not the only wounded sparrow in this broken nest. A quiet breeze becomes like angel's breath. My dog Hope followed me outside a bar to wonder how I may be living wrong. She made me promise as she planned out the itinerary of her getaway, not to abandon our future with a capital F. Living is a grand responsibility. For anyone I've failed, I am truly and entirely in your thrall. Those early hours we faded like noises off of an explosion. We rise. I've been living for 5 a.m., evaporating like friendship in a fog off cast habits and practices, surrounded by primates cognating, a strained opportunity for self-knowledge. Humans can be cruel, unlike, say, sunlight off a lake. Nobody knows where we end up, only that an end may be simply the beginning in disguise. So I have some books. This one is fiction. It's called Cinder. I'm just going to open it randomly and read a section that won't make any sense. He wanted steady work. Suzanne had him driving out of town, dumping his phone. He was to meet her on a train. A note in her voice kept him from arguing. She'd said she needed a ride. Dante felt he was destined to be a secret of the universe. He must have some worth, could never seem to prove it. His mother traveled. She would have told him to take care of Susie. Dante had done a few jobs around town, nothing big. He didn't mind the Midwest. Trafficking was too much work and sweat. Dealing got repetitive. He'd run a few women. Then you had to date whores or lie about pimping. He'd rather pay for it than lie about it or try and relate to a chick who took in random dick all day. Not much point in that. Plus, they were shipping human beings around like cans of food. It wasn't right. I wrote another book. This one is called Dying the First Time. I was walking down the street and I saw there's a band that's about to come play here called Every Time I Die. I feel like we should tour together. Cool. Here we go. I dreamed about a train. I feel like I'm being rude to you guys. Those days when death examines us face forward. Memories gathered and lost piecemeal like tumbleweed, visions in pill bottles, throttled dreams from this generation of abandoned firecrackers. We live out our imagination for what it's worth and gather, collect, and burn more projects than they have amassed at the Louvre. I was a teen idol. I was a famous cock. I was a dread poet, a fantastic almost. I was a god. Truth be told, you probably were too. History. Our pattern of accepted statements, tales of failure for children, news, magazines, and tabloids, public secrets, government misinformation, retold memories. I've been thinking about arson, replacing faith with fire. I no longer believe in anything. What is this world we love in? The false speaking of fallen idols to friendship, drugged and diseased, we loot the centuries for material and knit ourselves a fabric of wisdom to keep warm. Perhaps too late. Maybe humans never stood a chance against ourselves. Who does a man turn to when he's lost himself? I'm not sure if this is fact or fiction. Living among dreams, my mother raised me within myths she couldn't fathom for herself. I used to fear death. Perhaps I'm free. I have a few words, a few thoughts, paragraphs I could have traded for some woman's body, consequence, a truth and lies. Not all wars are won. The miniskirt and thong, your man-child thug next door, vagrant itinerant cannabis farmer, muscle-bound thief, closet artist. Where have you been heading your entire life and didn't know it? I'm gonna skip ahead because I don't have time to read this whole thing. Lightning Hawkins, 1. I'm an American hip-hop rapper. Here are a few stories. Yesterday, riding my bike through an unfamiliar neighborhood, I came to a peculiar intersection as I coasted towards the light ahead. A red blinking hand warning. Countdown. Switch to an unexpected familiar image. The brave, go-ahead, walking white man, creature of habit, child of society, civilization's son. We think we know what to expect. We've come to believe we know our universe. Most days, knowing something is good enough to make it true. But are any events insignificant eventually? The other day, as I came to a crossing with my wife, we saw a woman laughing with a young man on the corner. When we approached more closely, we found the woman holding her bloody mouth and calling out for a lost tooth. We stood alongside her and her friend with a collective dazed expression. When we reached the other side of the street, we heard screams, a young man howling, "Oh no, no, no," while his friend shook left to right in confusion or disbelief. The 5 of us formed an incredulous lineup outside of the sugar bar. Someone struggled for words. He almost got hit by a car. A man stumbled drunkenly out of the street and into shadow. Millie stared onto the avenue at an event that had not occurred. My wife has a keen eye. Once, she noticed from across the street an unconscious man with a bleeding head wound. This was a man who had been ignored by many average Samaritans as they stepped around the growing pool of his blood. The ambulance had trouble spotting us until I stepped from the curb to flag them down, but I digress. You guys want to hear poems? I'll read a poem. This is a poem I wrote for my wife, hoping she wouldn't leave me. We're about to go to Vegas. She's going to leave. The Never. For Amelia. I'm just going to warn you right now, it's a fucking weird poem. Thank you. When heart attack climbs out of deep dish sausage, when I have something more perfect to write about, this is for the day I hope I never see you leaving out the window of our studio apartment. I never see you pack those last bags into the cab. This is for the day I don't have to tell my son I still love him. Because I know every day he takes it with his cereal, shits it out in the toilet, sometimes has to wash his underwear twice, sometimes has to clean the mattress. There's too much love. This is for the day Shabazz B doesn't ask me where my mama went. The day I never have to introduce my parents to my children. My father doesn't know my birthday. This is for the loss of Bastard, for the final moment where I don't have to watch you board a plane with my daughter. This is for walking everywhere and only in traffic. I didn't hear you say goodbye. But if one day goodbye crawls into your ear while we're sleeping, I'm sorry. One day I didn't hold you tight enough. One day the fire hose goes limp and you realize you can drown in shallow water. I love you. And I'm sorry. There's never anything I've tried to do harder than I've tried to love you, like a wall crumbling down, like the force of gravity on a comet in one direction. If I could hold you like a pipe bomb. If I could make a suggestion, I would really suggest you guys check out the Youth Slam, because that shit fucked me up. Seriously. It was rough. Don't go if you're feeling like super fragile. Letters from a lunatic in the ashes of evening. I'm told there's a flag on the moon. It doesn't wave. It hangs still and alone in the empty air, old earth and steel carved deep in the crater, and I want to see it. Planted with strong hands and live footage for a nation of unblinking eyes, unthinking minds. I heard of love, with no knives and stitches, no wounds open and no scars, no crying in the dark. I heard of freedom, but I didn't believe it. Because they said the Panthers were terrorists. They said protect and serve and cast a ballot. They said pray to Jesus, and they killed Freddie in his bed, set ablaze the remains of children in villages with names I'd never heard. They told us we'd be safe if we only tithe and pay taxes on time, if we didn't ask too many questions, if we speak our minds quietly enough to be ignored. And my friends are so dumb. We think we can change it. We are so fucking stupid. We want to believe in anything, in a fucking flag, not waving, still and lonely. So I want to meet God. I want to see that flag. I want to see it with my fucking hands. I want to taste more than my tongue, walk anywhere without treading on the skull and spine of another survivor who couldn't fight it anymore. I want to see a cherry blossom without imagining its ruined shadow on a broken wall in Japan. I'm searching the sky for diamonds that were never plucked out of ash by gloved hands of the Gestapo, never pried from the fingers of a child's severed hand. They told me of the banquets, but all I heard was the ears of rotting corn, dug up from the graves of plague victims in the years before our flags were sewn out of cotton, of scraps of Union and blood of redcoats in the arthritic hands of a forgotten griot, of Shango, of the Nile, whose milk flowed free and white enough to feed one baby, one spoiled infant, and quiet the starvation of his brother in the shed, in Manhattan, in Delaware, Miami, Seattle, and places built on graves and named after warriors. I can't remember who I've killed, and I can't live in apology. Too many victims, and I never heard their screams. My God has her nipples pierced. She is walking from Birmingham to Montgomery, across the Mississippi and the missions to Mazatlan, listening for the growls of panthers and gorillas, echoes of Sandinistas treading pathways through the Amazon. She is digging holes in Egypt, searching for survivors of My Lai, Nagasaki, 9/11. She wears no uniform. She holds a trumpet in one hand and a razor underneath her tongue and leads her children from hatred to home. My God is lonely. She is calling us closer, begging forgiveness for this knife of love she wields. She is with me in the shadows and in twilight. I don't believe in her, but I'm hoping she's real, so I can stop searching the sky for flags. I am asking her to open me, cut out my eyes, and plant this vision in earth that never, never, ever belonged to anyone. So I don't know if you noticed or can tell, but I don't have my poems memorized anymore. I've been doing comedy. And I'm super down to depress you guys more, but do you want to hear some